Let's talk about charisma, because charisma is a combination, right? Of, you said, warmth and confidence, and having that perfect blend.
Perfect blend. And so 82% of our judgments of people are based on those two traits, which is shocking to me, because when you ask, and I've asked audiences, how do you want to come across? Name your perfect first impression. Hundreds of words: outgoing, funny, smart, witty, impressive, memorable, all the words you could think of. But actually, when it comes down to it, the only two words that make up 82% of our judgments are warmth, friendliness, likability, openness, and competence: capable, powerful, efficient. In that way, when we meet someone, we are very quickly trying to answer two questions. And in your interactions, if you can quickly answer these two questions, your whole interaction will be better. Doesn't matter if it's a date or negotiation or interview, which is, can I trust you and can I rely on you? And that's when we have a good date. That's when we have a good interview. That's when we want to work with someone or be friends with them or talk to someone. That's what we're looking for, is just the answer to those two questions.
On today's episode, we have Vanessa Van Edwards, who I am just smiling I'm grinning from ear to ear, because you guys, I have been waiting for this interview for months. Her information is so amazing. She wrote a book called Cues. Her other book was called Captivate.
I like the C words.
Yeah, you really do.
Confidence, charisma, cues, captivate.
Why is that?
I don't know. Just they're so good, such good words.
They are good words. And we can talk all about that. Because she is an expert on body language, on communication. And this new book is called Master the Secret Language of Charismatic Communication. She talks all about signals and how to have the most impact in meetings and first impressions. It doesn't matter if you're just someone who's dating or if you are someone who is a professional. You can literally glean anything and everything from your work. So
thank you.
I'm excited to have you.
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy to be here. I've been waiting for months too. So I can't wait.
I can't wait. You're just saying that.
I cleared my day. I was like, it's a Jennifer day.
I'd love to see. Look how good you are.
This is my day.
See, you know how to make a great first impression.
I better. I wrote a book about it.
More than one book. And you crush these books crush.
Oh, thank you.
No, like I said, practical information.
I think that what's really helpful is a lot of the communication books. I'm an awkward person, right? Like I'm somewhere in between introvert and extrovert. I'm an ambivert. And so many of the books that I read growing up or guides I saw were written by extroverts. And I just felt so like I had to pretend to be outgoing to make a good first impression. And so for so long, I felt like I was faking it till I made it. I didn't make it. So
fake it till
I almost made it. Yeah. You know, I was like pretending to be something I wasn't, and it was exhausting. And so I so appreciate you saying that about the books, because the books are the guides that I wish I had. Very practical, a little funny. Like sometimes I try a few jokes on there, and also like, what's the science say? Like not someone's opinion, but what's the science actually say?
I should say, so what Vanessa's title is, she's called a behavioral investigator.
There you go.
And she just studies people's behavior and also helps people with how to cue better to get what they want, right?
Yes.
And I heard on a couple interviews, you were kind of nervous about even putting the book out because it could be used as manipulation.
Yes. So like, there's this hidden language that's happening. We don't realize it's happening, but we are constantly sending signals back and forth. And so as I realized, I have a very weird problem where I misinterpret neutral cues as negative. And there's actually research behind this that some say that if you're neurotic, I'm high in neuroticism, which is one of the 5 personality traits. So I worry as a hobby. You know, like it's like one of my sports.
Yeah, me too.
So, like I just love to worry. And so because of that, I have this lens, this negative lens that I was missing all these cues. And so when I first started writing about them, it was just, let me catalog the cues that are being sent to me. So I stopped misinterpreting them. So I stopped, every time I would leave a party, I would turn to my husband and be like, she's mad at me. He'd be like, what? I'm like, she's so mad at me. He's like, no, she's not mad at you. I'm like, did you see the way that she looked at me? He's like, no. And so I realized I had to create some sort of a glossary for myself to stop seeing people in that way. The problem is other people will use that information negatively. And so I was so scared that when I put the book out, that people would say, oh, I'm going to manipulate people with these cues. And unfortunately, they are very powerful. Like they can be used that way.
Yeah.
And that made me very nervous. But I thought, you know what? I'd rather have the information out there to be used for good. And hopefully then we can have a common language where we can say, that's the cue that you're sending. And I either like it or I don't.
Well, think about like Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power, right?
Yes.
It can kind of be considered the same kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Like how to get power over people. There could be a negative connotation to it, but I actually think, and I'm close friends with Robert, and I love that book. It's a monster book, right?
Yes.
And it could be used for good and for bad.
Okay,
right?
fun fact. This is a really creepy, weird fact.
Okay.
But the classic book, How to Win Friends and Influence People,
Right.
Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie.
So that book has helped millions of people, right? Like people still read it. I read it when I was a teenager.
Yeah, me too.
Fun fact is that Charles Manson read that book in prison and used it to build his cult later.
No way.
In one of his early prison stints before he did the really bad stuff, because he did little bad stuff, he read that book and he took a class that was being offered in prisons on the Dale Carnegie method for how to win friends and influence people. And that is exactly what he used to build his cult later. So these things really, if you know how people work, and that's really what it is there's these hidden dynamics of people. And there are laws, right? There's 48 laws of power. There are 96 behavior cues. If you learn what they are, you can use them in any way that you wish.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm fascinated by all this information.
I love it so
much.
much.
I'm fascinated by human behavior in general, like why people do what they do, and how, and also like why I'm doing what I'm doing, and how it could be misinterpreted, and a lot of times I'm misinterpreted, right? So that's why for me, I found this book very, to your point, very resonated, because people can think I'm being bitchy, I'm being hard, I'm being cold, I'm being this, but it's just like what I'm doing, right? Like,
so it's interesting. So I have the problem where I think I misinterpret cues being sent to me. Do you worry that people misinterpret the cues you are sending to them?
I don't worry about it. I just think I don't really care that much. But I don't
care if people think that.
I don't care what people think. I don't really care. I'm just being honest.
I'm worried for you. That's the truth.
That's a whole other problem. Maybe I'm a sociopath. No, that's not really what it is. I feel like I'm sometimes very direct and very to the point, and I don't like to mince a lot of words a lot of times, and that can be sometimes seen as
too direct. So the way that we break it down, which is like, I think this is the most important thing, which I love, is we think of people as two basic traits, warm and competent. And so if you're direct, if you speak right to the point, if you have really direct nonverbal cues, so lots of eye contact, lots of head movement, very clear gestures, people see you as highly competent. That's great. The problem is competence without warmth leaves people feeling suspicious, or leaves people feeling intimidated. That is directly from the research. The people who are off the charts in competence, people go, there's not enough warmth. I don't know if they like me. I don't know if they're friendly.
Right.
And so without warmth, people don't always believe you're competent, or they can't digest your competence. And so you're right in that sense of like, am I being too direct? Is that going to turn someone off? It's simply because you're just lacking the warmth. It's like a lubricant. That warmth lubricant is a lubricant for competence.
Well, that's interesting because, and not to make, this is not about me, this interview
but let's make it about you.
No, it's not about, because I mean that the other thing a lot of times, and I think I want to first talk about, I'll bring this up in a second. I'm going to hold my thought.
Okay.
I want you to let's talk about charisma, because charisma is a combination, right? Of, you said, warmth and confidence, and having that perfect blend.
Perfect blend. And so 82%, and that is a massive number. 82% of our judgments of people are based on those two traits, which is shocking to me, because when you ask, and I've asked audiences, how do you want to come across? Name your perfect first impression. Hundreds of words: outgoing, funny, smart, witty, impressive, memorable, all the words you could think of. But actually, when it comes down to it, the only two words that make up 82% of our judgments are warmth, friendliness, likability, openness, and competence, capable, powerful, efficient. In that way, when we meet someone, we are very quickly trying to answer two questions. And in your interactions, if you can quickly answer these two questions, your whole interaction will be better. Doesn't matter if it's a date or negotiation or interview, which is, can I trust you and can I rely on you? And we are looking to people to see, can I trust you and can I rely on you? And that's when we have a good date. That's when we have a good interview. That's when we want to work with someone or be friends with them or talk to someone. That's what we're looking for, is just the answer to those two questions.
So what happens if you have too much warmth and not enough competence?
Yes, love it. So let's talk about the two imbalances, right?
Okay.
So the reason why charismatic people are so magnetic, that we're like drawn to them, is because they have the perfect balance. The moment we get out of balance or out of whack, like let's say you said too high in warmth. Okay, people who are sending lots of warmth cues, they're seen as friendly, trustworthy, likable, compassionate, but not that smart, not that capable, not that powerful. They're often interrupted. So highly warm people have this problem where people always come to them for their life, for like advice and their life story. Like highly warm people are constantly sitting in the corner of the room and someone's like verbal vomiting all over them. That is a highly warm person, because they are sending off signals of open to me, open up to me, tell me everything. So people constantly seek them out and verbal vomit all over them, but don't take them seriously. Forget having met them before, forget their names. So highly warm people are super liked in the office, but when they want to get a raise or a promotion, they're looked over.
Wow.
Highly warm people are, yeah, she's nice, but they wouldn't have you on their team. They wouldn't buy from you. They wouldn't come to you for really important advice. Highly warm people also struggle with being people pleasers. And that's because highly warm people, the reason they're sending those cues, like from a psychological perspective, is there's two desires that we have as humans: to be liked and to be respected. People who are highly warm have been taught, whether that's socially or from their parents, that being liked is more important than being respected. And so what can happen is they say yes too much, they overcommit. And so people, highly warm people, I always joke that if you have a highly warm friend, you have a highly warm friend, if they always say yes and then cancel at the last minute.
That's actually me.
And that is because highly warm people, in the moment, they want to please you.
Right.
They really want you to like them. They want to seem open and likable. So they're like, of course. And in the moment, they mean it. But then real life hits, they're at home and they're like, tired. I can't do it. I got to stay home and watch Netflix. I cannot put on a pair of pants. There's no way that's going to happen.
Exactly.
So that's highly warm, right? Superpowers. They have superpowers: collaboration, being supporters, being open, being liked. Their weaknesses: they're not taken seriously, they're overlooked, they're underestimated, they're doubt, they're dismissed, right? That's their problem. Highly competent folks, on the other hand, highly competent folks are always seen as impressive. They're seen as smart. They're seen as powerful. But what can happen is, because they're constantly sending out competence cues, people think, ooh, she's intimidating. I can't open up to her. She's cold.
Right.
And so this is what the research shows, is that competence without warmth leaves us feeling suspicious.
Now, I guess my question is, could you be one in certain environments and another in another environment?
So this is the advanced, right? So actually very highly charismatic people use their warmth and competence like a thermostat or like a dial. So when they're around really warm people, they dial up their warmth cues, right? They send a couple more warmth cues. When they're at happy hours, when they're socializing, when they're schmoozies, when they're with a VIP that like, oh, this VIP, I want to be a little warmer with them. I want to get into their good side. They dial up warmth. They also, oftentimes, we default to higher in warmth around our families, around our friends. Maybe we dial up a little bit in competence in business situations.
Right.
So yes, that's where the magic is that not only can we be different in different situations, that we can actually control it. And that's my other favorite C word. I love control.
Control.
Oh man, boy, oh boy, do I love control. So as a social warrior, right, I socially overthink. I lay in bed at the end of the night and replay every conversation.
Yep.
What the antidote to that for me has been control. So what would happen is, in my anxiety, my awkwardness, what should I do with my hands? What cues should I send? How will they take me serious? And then I would replay. Now I have 96 cues to choose from. So I know exactly what cues I want to send. I know exactly what cues are being sent to me. And so the way that we can take control is we say, okay, in this situation, I want warmth. I'm dialing up the warmth. In this situation, I'm going to hit them with competence. Or I know why they see me as cold and I'm okay with it.
Right. That's what I like about this book and your book, or your content, is because you don't have to be a naturally, emotionally, highly intelligent person to get these things. So I was going to say to you, I think that there are people who are naturally more gifted than others in picking up these social cues.
Yes.
And to be like, okay, I gotta dial in that warmth. I gotta take it back a bit. But the majority of people do need help in these searches, because they walk away kind of like, well, why did that interview go badly? Or why did that date go badly?
Why did I get a no?
Or why did I get a no? Right. And so if you have the tools and the information to understand more, it is so powerful.
Oh my gosh, it's so empowering.
Exactly. It's so empowering.
And I also like what we don't realize, and this is what gets me excited about this work, is our cues are contagious. So it's not just you being in control of your cues lets you show up how you want to show up. That's one part of the equation.
Yeah.
The second more exciting part of the equation for me is if you show up more warm and more competent, you trigger other people's warmth and competence. So if I'm with my team, if I'm with my family, if I'm with my friends, and I'm showcasing very purposefully in control warmth and competence, they are catching that warmth and competence. That if we show up as our most charismatic self, that is the single best way to make everyone around us be their most charismatic self.
And also to add on to that, so in order to be successful, it's not about being the most competent or being the most warm. It's about really having that real perfect blend. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to be the smartest. You just have to have enough charisma or have the blend of charisma to get your goal done.
Exactly. And also there's one last area that we haven't talked about, which is, you mentioned smart people, being the smartest person. This is the problem I think that smart people make.
Yeah.
Smart people are smart. They rely on their really good ideas. And they think, I have a great idea. I'm really smart. That's enough. And so they show up to pitches, they show up to meetings, and they're like, why aren't people getting my ideas? And again, the research proves you can have the smartest idea in the world, but if you're not lubricating it with warmth, people cannot believe it. So what will happen is smart people, they double down on competence, and that doesn't work. And they wonder, what is happening? So then they go sterile. And that's the last area that we are trying to fight against, is a lot of really powerful, smart people don't know what to do with their cues. So they under cue, they under signal. So you'll notice it now, especially in the last 5 years, it feels like people have decided stoic is good. Being unreadable is good. Well, I don't know what cues to send. I don't know how to be warm and confident. So I'm going to send no cues at all. And so what's happening is we're getting on video calls, we're watching presentations, we're with people who are like robots. They're trying to conceal their facial expressions, they're trying to conceal their body. They try to be as unreadable as possible. The problem is going mute is in itself a cue.
Right.
So if you go mute, you actually look a lot like a liar. Liars often go mute because they're trying to not give away the truth. And so what's happening is this muting, this under signaling is actually backfiring to all these smart people.
So then that's a great segue into how to cue properly, right? Yes. So now I feel everybody's on Zoom more than ever, right? These video calls. Or emailing. They're not really. So can you give some good tips and good cues how to kind of rock the video conferencing?
And Matt, your cues on video call matter more than ever because actually other things are taken away. And I felt very fortunate with the timing. So I signed the book deal for cues in June of 2020.
Okay.
And I was writing cues all through 2020 and 2021. So I was hyper aware of video. If it had only been a few months earlier, I think I would have been less aware of video.
Wow, yeah.
So a lot of the research we did for cues was on video because we couldn't do it in person.
Right.
So for example, I'll give you one example. So I partnered with Dr. Paul Zak. Dr. Paul Zak is an incredible researcher. He's kind of the oxytocin guy. If you've ever heard of oxytocin, the chemical of connection, the chemical of love, he's the guy who's been researching it for the last 20, 30 years.
Wow. Yeah.
He's the one who kind of discovered that you can bottle oxytocin and you can give people nose sprays full of oxytocin.
Did you wear a necklace or something that was an oxytocin necklace?
I did. I have an oxytocin necklace.
Where do you buy them?
Etsy.
Is it a real thing?
Yes, I got a gold oxytocin necklace and I wear it instead of a heart. Because, if we're talking about real connection, it's oxytocin, not a heart. Yes, I wear it.
Oh,
I wish I was wearing it too.
How does it work?
So the way that oxytocin works, it does a lot of things in our body. So remember that.
But if you wear it, you're not like, how does that?
Well, I wish it actually triggered oxytocin. But when you look at it, it makes me feel good.
Oh, okay.
Actually, the only way that we produce oxytocin is eye contact, touch, and Me Too moments. Like moments where we're like, oh, me too. That makes us feel that warm and fuzzy, like belonging.
And connection. And like,
oh, I trust this person. I'm on the same page with this person. Like, that's why we're always like, oh, where'd you go to school? Who do you know? Because the moment you have a tie, you're like oxytocin. And
that's true. Or dopamine. Isn't that like a dopamine hit?
So oxytocin is a chemical of connection. It makes us feel trusting. It makes us feel the warm and fuzzies. Dopamine is the chemical of excitement and motivation. Dopamine makes us want to do things. So dopamine is like, I have a present for you. That's dopamine. Oxytocin is me too. Like slightly different. So dopamine is like a motivating chemical. It makes you want to do, it makes you want to achieve, it makes you want to succeed. Dopamine helps beat burnout. Oxytocin helps build rapport. Right. So they're slightly different, right?
Okay.
So I partnered with Dr. Paul Zak, who I've been friends with for years. And I said to him, I'm worried. I'm literally writing the book on cues, and there's a whole cue on touch. And I'm like, Dr. Zak, like, what are we going to do in a world without touch where we're on a video call? There's no handshake. There's no cheek kiss. Like there's no oxytocin creators.
Rapport built.
Yes. Yeah. And oxytocin is created by touch primarily. So he said,
I didn't touch you, and I feel oxytocin with you.
When we were making eye contact, we had lots of me too moments.
True,
right?
That's right. Okay.
So it's not the only way. So
it's the primary way.
It's the fastest way. That is why we're so inclined upon first meeting to handshake or high five or cheek kisses, because we want to seal the deal kind of chemically. So I asked him, what do we do? Like we're in this environment. I said to him, I have a theory that if you use oxytocin words, it could kind of replace the level of engagement. So if I were to get on video and say, sending a high five, sending a virtual cheek kiss, would it do anything? So we did a little experiment where he has this amazing technology on smartwatches where he measures your skin conductance and like your physiology to see if you're actually like being turned on, not sexually, but just physiologically.
Okay.
It's on a smartwatch on your wrist. Yeah. I have to clarify that. Yep. And so what he did is we had a bunch of people and put on this software on their smartwatch and watched 2 different videos. One video, we used oxytocin words. I can see you. That's not just a word. Sending a virtual high five, sending a virtual hug. Wish I could handshake you. And the other one was just positive neutral. So, hey, so happy to be here. So glad we could do this. Great to get together. We found that when we use the oxytocin words, it had double the engagement. Double. Meaning even sending a virtual high five actually triggered a physiology like having an actual high five.
Wow.
So very first thing is, on your first 10 words of a video call, you should be using oxytocin words. It's so good to see you. Oh, I wish I could give you a hug, sending a hug from here. Hey, virtual high five, if that feels natural to you. That's a really easy way to produce oxytocin. If that doesn't feel natural to you, you want to do the next few warmth cues. So one is making sure that you're not too close to the camera. That's like the biggest mistake that we make in virtual calls. So in interpersonal interactions, there's 4 space zones. And these are incredibly important for gauging intimacy. So we're very aware of these. Like even our distance of our chairs right now, I would say we're about 3 feet away.
Probably, yeah, around 3 feet.
That's like the ideal for an interview because it means we're close enough where we can make eye contact. I can see all your facial expressions. If you reach out right now and just see if you can touch my fingers, we can. Right. So that's the ideal. We want to be able just close enough where if we wanted to touch, we could. And we judge that for intimacy. The problem is on video calls, all the space goes away.
Right.
Because there's no actual people. So what happens is people get really close to their camera and we accidentally go into the intimate zone, which is 0 to 18 inches away.
Yeah. Well, to tell us what the 4, you said in the book too.
Yes. Yes. So the 4 zones are the public zone, which is about over 7 feet away. That's like, I don't know you. I can wave to you, but I couldn't talk to you. Then is the social zone, 5 to 7 feet away. That's like, I can see you, I know you, I feel safe around you. We're not gonna have an in-depth conversation, but I could be like, how are you?
Right.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Then there's my favorite zone, which is the personal zone, which is right here, which is about 3 to 5 feet away,
right.
18 inches to 5 feet away, depending on what culture you're in. And that's a great zone because we can touch if we want to. Right. I can see your facial expressions and it's so comfortable. 0 to 18 inches away is the intimate zone. We only like people in our intimate zone if we want to be intimate with them. So we briefly enter it for a hug and then immediately back up. If we're about to kiss someone, we're usually in the intimate zone, right? If we're really feeling close to someone, we're in the intimate zone. So we reserve that for people that we feel very, very close to. While on video call, if you are less than 18 inches away, if you measure the distance between your nose and your camera and you're less than 18 inches away, you are accidentally going into people's intimate zones, which is triggering too much.
Even though if there's a computer in the middle of you,
there's an instinct, and this is why, like, if people are like really close to their camera, you're like, whoa, back up. It's like a digital close talker. Like it's still those same alarm bells.
Still the same alarm.
Yes.
What I don't understand, and that makes sense. That's really great. Those are great tips for people because we're doing Zoom now.
And by the way, just take a measuring tape and measure the distance between your nose and your camera.
Yeah, that's it. what I was going to say is, how about in terms of the lighting and all that? That doesn't matter, right? People are not like, is that too in depth?
No, I do think it matters. In fact, like I would even say like your lighting and your background really matters.
Okay.
So there's 4 different ways we send cues. There's nonverbal. So our body language, our facial expressions, our voice tone, that's about 60 to 90% of our communication. It's the biggest. So, our hand gestures, our smiling, our eye contact, those all matter. Next is verbal. So the words we use. So saying, it's good to see you, or handshake.
I wish I can give you a high five. Yeah.
Exactly. Third is vocal. How you say your words. And we can talk about that in a second, because that's a huge important part of video calls. The last one is imagery. Imagery. What's in your background, the colors you wear, the props you hold. So for example, there's a research study that looked at the background, and they said by far having a real background is better than having a virtual background.
Yeah.
And that is because when we see a virtual background, our eye is like, what's back there?
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand. Where did her hand just go? So like those cues really matter. So yes, I mean, the basics are lighting from the top, right? Coming down at you is always better. Having cues in your background that help you, that serve you. Like for example, when I was presenting on cues, I kept getting the question over and over again, are cues universal? Are cues cultural?
Yeah.
And I was so like, this question is crazy. I'm getting it all the time. So I took down everything in my background and I added a world map behind me. The question went away.
Really?
Just speaking with a world map behind me, it went away because that cued people to go, oh, she speaks around the world. Like that small prop. And so what I would think about is in your Zoom backgrounds, in your dating profiles, you want to create cues that either answer questions or attract the right people or detract the wrong people. So I believe for dating specifically in creating allergies. So allergies are props that are going to either turn someone on or turn someone off. So like
allergies?
I call it an allergy cue.
Okay.
An allergy cue is like a cue that people feel strongly about.
Okay.
That it's going to turn off the wrong people. So for example, I'll give you a really specific example. One of my friends was dating forever. She went on so many bad first dates, bad first 2 or 3 dates, could not find the right person. And I looked all of her pictures. They were all very flattering, very beautiful. But the problem is they were too bland. And one of the problems is she's a vegan. And that would come up on the first, second date. And if you're a vegan, you're either really into that or you're not into that. Very few people feel kind of in the middle.
That's so true.
Right. So I said to her, I want you, I bought her a sweatshirt that said, if you're not nice to animals, I'll kill you. Okay, that's what the sweatshirt said. That's how she feels.
Yeah.
She's like, this is so extreme. I was like, I want you to wear it. I want you to look gorgeous. And I want you to wear it in your very first profile picture. Because it's either going to turn someone on real hardcore or they're going to be like, allergy.
Yeah, that's so true. Right. That's what you mean by allergy. Her man.
Yes. So I want you to create props that are allergic to your wrong people.
Right. That's a great idea.
Like our brand is called Science of People. I purposely chose science as an allergy. There are certain people who are like, I don't like science. You're not my person.
Right.
You're not going to like my book. Science is in almost every cover marketing of my book because if you don't like science, it's an allergy for you.
Yeah.
If you like science, you're like, yes, data.
Who wouldn't want to have data and science backing these things? Like,
not my people.
Do they want like a bobblehead just wandering around just saying, my opinion is like.
They want funny stories. And we have some of those, but like you got to like data, And
so why don't they get an Archie comic?
I agree.
You know,
we should just tell them, go get your Archie magazine.
No, it's true. Like, I mean, especially with this type of information, you want to have some kind of legitimate science backing of it, right?
I agree, but not everyone does. And so I would think about like for your personal brand, for your professional brand, for your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if you want to get a job in a tech startup, do not be in a suit.
100%. That's a great point.
Like, so you should be in the clothes that you want to wear at your ideal job.
So tell us about that. Let's talk about before I even jump into that. I'm going to forget. Why do people, when they see each other and they don't know somebody, they get into their into that intimate zone by doing that face-to-face kissing or the hugging when they don't even know them? It's like uncomfortable. Like if you're someone who doesn't like to be touched or anything else, isn't that too just like it's just like you're just assuming, and it's like can't that give you the opposite effect?
So here's the thing. Humans are super curious creatures. Again, 2 C words I just love.
Yeah.
Here's what happens is we meet someone, even if we don't know them, we really want to we want to suss you out. And so when we get close, we're producing oxytocin to see, do I like this person? But we're also looking for pheromones. We're also judging, is this my person smell-wise? I'm gonna tell you a really disgusting two disgusting studies.
Okay.
But these change the way that I think about touch. They did a study where that exact question. They're like, why have humans evolved to handshake? It seems crazy.
More than that. And people are now constantly coming up to me and kissing both cheeks and like hugging me. I'm like, I don't even know you.
Yeah, and you're like, why would humans, it's very dangerous. We don't really know someone that well to allow them into your intimate space. Why would you do it? Okay.
And then you feel like, and then for the other person, it puts them in a situation where they feel like they're being rude if they step away. So then you have to go about that. And then everything becomes, you're putting yourself in an awkward situation.
But it's primal. Here's the problem. It is so primal. That's why like it's hard not to do this, because what they did, that was exactly the question they were wondering. So what they did is they found that what happens when you handshake someone is you can decide about 4 of the 5 personality traits from a handshake alone. So blind handshake, you can tell about someone's extroversion. You can tell about their agreeableness. You can tell how organized they are. So first you can tell a lot about a person by their handshake.
Okay, tell us.
About mine?
Let me shake your hand. Okay.
So I would say that you are ambitious, organized, extroverted.
By my handshake.
By your handshake. Yeah.
Because what was my handshake to you?
Firm.
Okay.
Quick. And you only pumped me once. I'm going to give you the opposite handshake. Okay. And you're going to see how you're going to see me as different. Are you ready? I'm going to give you that. I just gave you my real handshake. I'm going to give you a handshake that is not my personality. And you're going to be like, whoa, this feels really different.
Okay. Because I've heard that I wanted to say one thing. We all know that like, you know, when you like give someone a handshake and they give you that like
dead fish
hand, I'm like, that person is such a turn off.
I'm going to give you the dead fish. Okay. You're not going to like it.
Okay. It's like awful.
Horrible. Now I'm going to give you the other one. Okay. We're going to go the other way. You're going to be like, whoa, that's so different. Ready?
Okay. Oh my God. That's like, people do that. I'm always like, wow. It's like,
but don't you think of me differently?
100%.
100%.
Okay. What does that say? So tell us about this stuff.
Okay. So first we learn a lot about someone from a handshake.
So mine's the one pump.
You know what? I don't even want to tell people because I don't want you to change who you are.
I think it's brilliant.
You have to just know who you are and own it.
And that means
don't be a dead fish.
Okay. Let's go over this again. So mine is, would you say ambitious?
Ambitious, extroverted, and organized?
Organized?
Yes. Dead fish is when it's very, very loose and limp, and we see someone as like
brutal.
A pushover, can't get stuff done, probably timid, and probably not organized.
I also think that they're probably just lame. Like, I mean, who does that?
And lame.
Like, who does
Let's
that?
Add
like,
lame.
And also completely unaware. So socially and self unaware. Like, how do you not know that's a shitty handshake, right?
You'd be shocked. Okay, like someone listening is like, oh, I have a dead fish handshake.
Well,
they're going to be shocked.
Change it.
Okay, so here's what's crazy about this study. First they found out you could find out a lot about someone from their handshake.
What's the other one? You didn't tell us the third one, the sturdy one.
Oh, the really sturdy one when I manhanded you. I really made it strong. And I fast pumped you.
Yeah, you shook fast. Yeah.
So I took over the handshake. So that's dominant. Right?
Yeah.
It's very imposing. It's very powerful. It's like, it's not even organized. It's like hyper-focused. Like you probably thought like, whoa, she gets it done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I quick pumped you and I held harder and I also pulled you a little bit closer to me.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing that we can do is, here, give me your hand.
When girls do that to me, I'm very like,
whoa.
I'm always like very put back a little bit or like taking it back.
I kind of like it.
But when guys do it, I'm like, wow, that guy's like.
Oh, I love when people dominate my handshake.
I like that. Like that's like, oh, he's a guy.
But I like girls and guys too. I like both. I'm like, yeah.
When a girl does a strong, like,
oh my God, I'm into it.
Strong, it's so intense.
Into it. I'm so into it.
Like you were like squeezing so hard.
Okay. So the other thing that can happen is this.
Yeah.
So like if I turn you up, this is a very submissive position. It's very weak for me, and so I'm saying you're in charge. Versus if I were to do this to you, that should not feel good. That's saying I'm in charge. There's certain politicians who do this. So if you've seen there's politicians who go like this and they pull you close. And they go like that.
That means you're in charge.
Yeah.
So if your palm is up, you're in charge.
If you are showing your very weak part of your hand, that means you're submissive. Right? You're saying I'm weak to you. Also, there's more pheromones that come out here. So a lot of times women will be like, "Oh, it's so good to meet you."
Yes.
To like be sort of like I'm showing like my intimate space.
Got it.
Versus like, "Hey, nice to meet you," which is like much more I'm in charge. So that's some handshake science. But what this study found, which I think is insane, is in the 10 to 20 seconds after someone handshaked, some point in the interaction, they would touch their own nose. And they hypothesized that we like to smell what the other person's hand smelled like. And I cannot tell you, now that I know this, you'll never be able to unlearn that. Now when I handshake people, I have to say, don't touch my nose, don't touch my nose, don't touch my nose, don't touch my nose, don't touch my nose. Like it just happened now where I was like, don't touch my nose. Because it's actually a human instinct, I swear, to shake hands and then touch your own nose. Because we want to smell it.
I love this.
Yeah. So
wow.
pheromones
so you want to see how the other person smells.
Yes. You
for
want
pheromone. Wow.
And hormones and like you can learn a lot about a person by smell. It's totally subconscious. Like here's the other example I share about this in my TED Talk, which I think was one of the reasons the TED Talk did so well because it's so disgusting, is they had two groups of people come into the lab. The first group ran on the treadmill wearing sweat pads. They caught their sweat. The second group skydived for the first time wearing sweat pads. They took the sweat pads. Both looked identical, but two different kinds of sweat. And they had participants smell them. Disgusting, right? I hope they paid them really well. In fMRI machines. They found that when people smelled the fear sweat, the skydiving sweat, they began to feel afraid, even though they had no idea what they were smelling. When they smelled the runner's sweat, they felt nothing at all. So what this means is that when we are afraid, it creates a certain kind of smell and it's actually catching. It's contagious. So I think one of the reasons why we insist on cheek kissing is we're like, are you afraid?
Really?
Like a little bit.
This is like Silence of the Lambs. This is so creepy.
It's so creepy. Another favorite C word. I'm just joking. That's
yeah, no. It's like
but that's what we're sussing out because we don't want to catch it. Very highly charismatic people are so confident. They are sending signals of confidence and we want that confidence. We want to catch it. When someone is low confident, when they're sterile, when they're afraid, we don't want to catch it.
True. That's such a good point. What happens if it's not about confidence? This is about like the opposite. It's like, I don't want this rando to be like touching me and kissing me. It's not that I'm not confident. It's just like, I just don't want their
because you don't want to take the chance
on me. Yeah.
100%. So people who are less comfortable with touch, it's probably because they're like, I don't want to take a risk on your heebie-jeebies. Like, I don't know what you're going to smell like.
Or like, I don't know you. Yeah.
Right.
Not big. Yeah.
So I kind of like it. Like, I kind of like to know what other people are about. Like, that's my whole job, right? I love to think about, so like, I'm going to smell you. I want to get close to you. I want to feel your hand.
A stranger?
Like,
what if it's like someone like gross and not very,
I don't know, I'm into it.
Clean or...
I'm like into it. Like, I'm like, no judgment. Like, I'm like, what do you like? What gets you going? You
really?
Yeah, totally. Like, that's my job.
So you think when
if I could, I had an experiment one time where all I did in the experiment was look in people's junk drawers, their trunks of their car, and their medicine cabinet. It was like the greatest 3 months of my life. Like, it was like the best.
See, that would be interesting to me.
Okay.
I like that. But if you're kissing someone cheek to cheek.
Smelling people.
I guess as it subconsciously is telling you something.
Exactly. And now that like I'm aware of it, like this is a gross challenge for listeners, but like next time you cheek kiss someone, like just like smell a little bit. Like, what do you smell? I'm telling you're going to learn something.
It's 100% true. What if you, like, I guess, and do we even know ourselves, like what we think of that smell? Like if it could be very nondescript sometimes.
I also think it's super subconscious. Like even I've known about this research for almost a decade. Like I've known about it. And even still I'm trying to suss people out. So I just try to like take someone in, like I take in their handshake and I try to think like what just pops into my head because I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there are certain things that will pop into my head that I'm like, interesting.
That is so interesting. I'm like fascinated by it.
It's so weird though. The book is less weird than that. I promise.
No. It's actually, I love all this stuff. There's also something else that I heard that gestures are way bigger than words, right?
Yes.
Like way more impactful than words.
Yes. So there's a beautiful researcher, Susan Goldwyn Meadow, who wrote a book called Hearing Gesture. And basically her argument in all of her research is that gesture isn't just like extra. Like we kind of think of it as like fluff, like we don't really think about it. But actually gesture is critically important to our comprehension, both as a speaker and as a listener. And that some gestures carry 400% more information than words. Like for example, if I were to say I have a really big idea and I hold up like I'm holding a quarter, you're like, that doesn't look very big at all. You're actually more likely to believe my hand. Same thing with if I were to say, I have 3 different things I want to tell you, but I hold up the number 5. You're like, no, it's 5. You're actually more likely to believe my hand. Yeah. So our brain actually gives a lot of weight to gestures, yet we don't think about our gestures. And so one of the experiments we did in our lab, I've always been interested in gesture, is we watched and coded thousands of hours of TED Talks looking for patterns.
Yeah.
And we found that the most popular TED Talkers by view count use an average of 465 gestures in 18 minutes. It's a huge amount of gesture. Whereas the least popular TED Talkers use an average of 272 gestures, almost half. And the reason for this is when we are listening to a speaker and they know their content really well, they're like outlining their content along with their words. And so when we're thinking about presenting an idea, telling a story on a date, showcasing our smarts, actually the best way that we can underline that is being like, I know my content so well. I'm going to tell you this point number 1 and this point number 2. I'm going to tell you it's this big or it's this big. Like it's like, wow, they're so congruent. Their gestures are literally punctuating their words.
I'm glad that you mentioned that the TED Talk. See, I know you did a bunch of studies on that and also Shark Tank, which I'll get to in a second. Yes. So give me some other cues or points of what you noticed when you did all your research with the TED Talks.
Yes. Actually, this brings us right back to which I forgot about, which is vocal power.
I wrote that down, voice. Because the gestures and the voice are so much more powerful
and we don't use
than the actual word you use.
Yes. I always think of these as opportunities. Imagine you work so hard on your ideas and your presence, your makeup, your hair, your clothes. Imagine if you just added these. It's like supercharging your charisma. So gestures is one, vocal power was the other, very clearly, in that there is like a TED Talk sound. So I'm going to do it for you so you can hear it. There is vocal cues that we use. So vocal cues are voice, volume, pace, cadence that make us judge someone's charisma levels, their warmth, their competence. So like, for example, all the best TED Talks start like this. Today, I have a big idea. I'm going to break it down into 3 areas that are going to change your life. And when they get to a statistic, they say, and now that took giant percent. And you go, wow, that's a big percent. Like they even cue you of when you should be wowed.
That is so interesting. So wait, because my TED Talk did very, very well.
Yes.
And I started with...
I wish I had just watched it. So
I was going to say, I wish you watched it.
I know. I know. Did you use that voice?
I started it by saying...
Yeah, you do the beginning for me.
Okay. So I know the secret to getting anything you want in life.
You did it. So if we were just talking back and forth, you'd be like, I know the secret to getting anything you want in life. But you said it in a TED Talk voice. So I know the secret to getting anything you want in life. That's a TED Talk voice. You did it.
So you think, because when I did my TED Talk, I left there thinking, oh my God, I bombed, right? Like so many things went wrong. I had notes on my hand and I was so nervous that I had like cotton mouth. I was like, they had to like restart it for me. I'm like, could we stop? Because I need some water. I could not even there were so many like foibles that happened.
That's good though.
That what I'm thinking, I'm curious, but is it because there were so many foibles that I came across very real?
Yes.
That people maybe were like, that would happen to me, that big loser. You know what I mean?
Yes. So here's the misconception. If you go watch the TED Talks that didn't do well, and by the way, didn't do well is like 20,000 views. Still like a lot, right?
Right.
Go watch those talks. The misconception is that those people messed up. No. The worst TED Talks sound like this. Today, I want to talk to you about a big idea. This is a life-changing idea. The last 20 years I've spent researching has been on the marine biology life in the series of the ocean. It's like so robotic and so memorized. And actually what happens is the worst TED Talkers, they under-cue. We're right back to where we started. They are so focused on the script.
Right.
They take away all the vocal charisma. They take away all their gestures. They stand there with their hands limp by their sides into the microphone, reciting a script.
Right. Memorized. It's all memorized.
And there's no gestures. So actually, the foibles, the vulnerability, we like speakers who use a conversational tone, a conversational stage tone, because we're like, we could be having coffee with them. That feels really real. So all the best TED Talks, like Brené Brown, Simon Sinek, they're not that rehearsed. Now they might have been actually rehearsed, but when they're talking on stage, Ken Robinson, it sounds like they're joking around at your dinner table. It does not sound like, today is the speech of my life. They're not talking like that. So our vocal power, one, is not scripted. Not under cueing, adding lots of emotion, including foibles, including vulnerability. And second, and this is what they all have, is they use the lowest end of their natural tone. So the other mistake that the worst TED Talkers make is they would start on a really high tone like this. So they'd walk on stage, hey everyone, good morning. Today I really want to talk to you about a big idea. And you're like, no, I cannot. Listen,
that's so true.
Click away. So the tone that you give is one of the most important parts of our vocal confidence.
Is that the tone? Do you know that girl Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos?
Do I? Let's talk about Elizabeth Holmes. Okay. So this research is pretty well established that lower tones for both men and women are seen as higher in confidence. Goes flying.
Yeah. Sorry. Say that one more time. I want that to be like said properly with me listening.
Yes. So it's pretty well established research that people with lower tones are seen as higher in confidence. In fact, research has found that it takes about 500 milliseconds of hearing someone speak to decide how confident they are. It's incredibly fast. Literally your first word, that's when someone decides how confident you are. And it's usually based just on the tone. I think, and that study came out in the early 2000s, I think Elizabeth Holmes read that study.
You think so?
I do. I think she read it and she went, wow, great. This is the clearest link to confidence we have. Women need to be taken more seriously. I'm going to take this study and I'm going to go so low that no one can question my confidence and my competence. So what she did is she went too low, right? She went to really low down here. So she was talking like this. The problem is we all can hear the inauthenticity in this. It's actually distracting. So when she was talking, it was like, what is happening with her voice? So I think she read that study and took it one step too far.
Well, what's interesting though is she did raise almost $1 billion with that voice.
She did.
And she was like a kid from Stanford, right?
It worked.
It worked.
So
what is interesting is
again, that's cue gone wrong.
But these are cues that actually it might be a cue gone wrong, but these cues are so subliminal that even if you know it's happening, it still happens.
And like investors and employees would say, her voice sounded weird, but boy, did she sound like she knew what she was talking about.
Well, 100%. Like, first of all, does anyone have any video or has anyone ever heard her speak before the Theranos?
Yes, I've listened to many of them. I did a little breakdown of Theranos. Yes, you can find clips of her on a podcast where her voice is much higher.
It was much higher.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Obviously higher?
Yes, obviously. Absolutely obviously higher. And also employees have said that when she was drunk, she would speak higher.
I saw that on the special, on her, on the
by the way, if you want to hear the perfect example of her low voice, go listen to the first 1 minute of her TED Talk. It's bizarre. Like it's so low and it's halty.
How do you stay that low for so long?
Oh my gosh, it must have been like exhausting for her. Maybe that's why she wore turtlenecks. It's like helps like cover up her vocal cords.
Totally.
So in your first few lines of your video call, of your phone call, of your date, you do not want to go, hi. That is the mistake that we all make is we take in a deep breath and we say hello on the upper part of our breath. So we say, it's so good to see you.
I hate that.
So when we listen to recordings in our lab, we've listened to recordings of phone calls, of sales pitches, of negotiations. And always the highest note someone has is their very first word, which is so sad because that means all of their confidence is given away in their very first words. People go, hey, it's so good to hear from you.
It's true. But the problem is it's like a very weird blend because you're trying to be warm with a warm cue. Mm-hmm. You want to come across open and nice.
Yeah.
So you go high.
Of course.
Right?
Remember that a high voice tone is not warm. A high voice tone just means excited. So like, for example, we talk to babies, we talk to puppies.
Yeah.
Hello, little one.
That's right.
How are you? Excitement, not warmth. So warmth comes from vocal warmth. So listen to the difference. Vocal warmth is we hear happiness, we hear compassion, we hear smiling. And actually smiling changes the sound of our voice. We did this in our lab where we had actors come in and record different hellos. So we had them do their normal hello. Then we had them think of something that made them happy, make a smile and say, hello. So just listen to the difference of that. So this is my neutral hello. Here's my happy hello. Like you can literally hear it in my voice.
By you smiling.
Yes.
Even if it feels like a fake smile.
Doesn't matter. You can still hear it.
Wow. Okay.
Right? Because the shape of my mouth, again, we're very subconsciously aware of these cues.
Yeah.
We don't have to think twice about it. But if I were to answer the phone and be like, hello, I don't sound very excited to hear from you.
No, you don't. You sound miserable,
right.
actually.
And people would be like, ugh. Right. And I actually would come across as less likable. We literally studied this in our lab. People rated the smiling hellos as more likable. We asked people to listen to these hellos. They had no idea what they were listening to. And they didn't know the person was smiling.
Wow.
And they rated the person as more friendly, more likable, if they want to hang out with them. So when I hear hello, you much more want to hang out with me just by even that fake smile.
So are there, and I think you talk with in this book or the other book about smiling in general though.
Yes.
What smiles are the most impactful or the most powerful to get what you want.
So there's smiling. It's funny because it's sort of gotten a bad rap in the last few years. Like it's horrible to be told to smile. Like no one likes that. So I try really hard to not give that advice. So what I would say is either smile for real or don't smile at all. Here's why. Dr. Barbara Wild and her researchers found that when they showed people pictures of fake smiles and real smiles, and the difference is in a real smile, our upper cheek muscles are activated. So it goes all the way up into our eyes, up in these upper cheeks, right?
Yeah.
When those upper cheek muscles are activated, and by the way, only 1 in 10 people can consciously activate them. So it's very hard to fake that. That means it's a real smile. We look for those upper cheek activation muscles. When it's a fake smile, it stays in the bottom half of our face, right? They're not activated up here.
Like crow's feet, you mean?
Crow's feet, yes. And
I got a ton of those.
So crow's feet are fantastic. The problem is Botox is a very complicated issue. And I'm not anti-Botox, but just it's important to know if you're going to do it, that it inhibits your emotional feedback loop. So when they Botox people's smile wrinkles, they actually felt less happy. When they Botox people's anger, they felt less angry. So they're actually thinking about using Botox as anger management treatment. So it's, again, not bad or good.
Seriously?
Yeah. They've actually found that it inhibits the anger cycle, that if you cannot make that anger expression when your eyebrows are pulled down and together in those vertical lines, it actually makes your body almost goes, oh, my face isn't angry. I guess I'm not that angry. It literally makes you feel less angry. So they're thinking about using it for anger management techniques because it actually helps inhibit that loop. But for smiling, it can also inhibit your happiness. So
interesting.
What Barbara Wild found is that when we see someone with a fake smile, we do not have any mood change. When we see someone with a real smile, we catch the happiness. So if you want to smile, make sure it's real. That makes you literally more physically memorable. It makes you more contagious. I'd rather you real smile or no smile. A fake smile doesn't do much.
Okay, give me some other cues like that.
Oh my goodness, there's so many.
I know. There's like a billion. I mean, like I'm trying to think of so many. Oh, I want to ask you about power posing.
Yes.
Because, wasn't that Amy Cuddy who did this whole thing? Wasn't that kind of, I heard that people,
she had some faulty science.
There was some faulty science behind it. And there's the power posing is not actually something that you can use.
She's come out defending her work. So I highly recommend if you're interested in like really learning about it, she's come out with a defense of her work and explanation of what happened. So, it hasn't been totally debunked. There was some fuzzy science in there, but she's come out.
So it has not been debunked.
She insists that her science was whole.
Okay.
I'll leave it up to you to decide, and you can go read her rebuttal.
Okay.
What is good to know, though, I don't know how accurate it is that power posing completely changes your testosterone. Right? Like that was a big leap.
That was the biggest leap.
That was the biggest leap in her research. I also think I love power posing, but you can't walk into a meeting with your hands above your head. So I like the idea of it, but I actually like to take it down a notch, which is just a very simple, my version of a power pose is actually just expansive posture, which very simply, the only distance that I care about, I don't care if your arms are up. I don't care if you're claiming space. That doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
All that I care about is the distance between your earlobe and your shoulder.
The distance, wait.
It's my favorite distance on the human body.
Okay, really?
This is the distance between your ear and your shoulder.
Okay, why?
Why? When we are anxious or defeated, we tend to roll our shoulders up. We tend to sink our head down. We'll often tilt our head down. People who are really ashamed will often have no space between their ears and their shoulders. It makes us feel very protected. And so you'll notice people who are really anxious will sit like this, like teenagers will be like, we don't see any space right here. Whereas confident people, they want to claim their space. They roll their shoulders down and back. They usually use armrests. They usually have their torso open. They have their head up and out and their chin up. So the only distance that I care about that's the most important on video calls, on profile pictures, is I want this distance to be as big as possible. That you're not like this in your profile pictures. It was the worst because it literally shows low confidence. That you're not going to start your video call, hi, good to see you. And that's what people do in their first impressions. They accidentally creep their shoulders up. Hey, everyone. Good to see you.
That's a great point. So if you keep your shoulders down
and head up,
and that's for everything, not just again, this is for LinkedIn profiles,
video calls, in person, how you wave hello, how you walk into a room, how you carry your stuff. I mean, oftentimes I'll see people with their laptop, right? And they have it tightly in front of their chest with their shoulders hunched up. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Wow. Yeah.
You look small. So that distance is the only power pose, quote unquote, power pose distance that I care about. That's actually the most impactful for your perceived confidence.
But you said something. Okay, so when you said when you were kind of imitating that one, how about a head tilt? I thought you talked.
I love head tilts.
Yeah, you like head tilt.
Yeah. So,
but isn't that still the ear to shoulder?
So like, look at the difference, right?
Okay.
So if I'm going to do a head tilt that I like, a head tilt is a universal sign of warmth. It's a universal sign of engagement. It shows I'm listening. So if I head tilt, I still have lots of distance. Mostly I'm just exposing my ear. And you see that as, she's listening, she's open. Versus...
Right. So you don't shrug those ears.
Shrugging.
You don't shrug those shoulders up.
And that also makes it really hard to have vocal power. So if I were to try to give an entire podcast interview like this, you would actually hear it in my voice. I actually sound smaller and sound younger.
Yeah, and it sounds weird.
Exactly, because you can hear it. We don't like people who take up little space. But the moment that I add more space, you go, oh, that's better.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? I've got so many, but like, because I haven't even asked.
I love it.
I feel so, okay, but how about, I have a note here, but I don't remember why, the walk. There's something about a walk here. You could tell a lot by someone's walk.
I mean,
I don't remember why I had it down here.
I don't know, but you can tell someone about it. But there's not, it's funny. There's Biomotion Lab has some interesting things about walking, but I didn't even include that in the book because it's hard to learn it. It's hard to change your walk.
Why, maybe I heard that, what you were talking
I think
maybe
I mentioned in the book that like having movement in your walk, like not having like your arms really stiff, like the more movement you have, the more space you take up. Yeah.
That was probably okay. So let's get back to the other stuff you're saying. So for the video calls, how about in terms of emailing and texting people?
Yeah. So the second to last chapter in the book is on verbal, right? Because so much of our communication is email.
Right.
What we're fighting in verbal is sterile. Meaning a lot of our communication has gotten so sterile that our words mean nothing. So we send emails like, hey, our meeting is planned for next week. I'll prepare the proposal for you and I'll get all the information over to you. Talk to you next Tuesday. Blech. Right? Like we get those emails all the time. It's hard to reply to them. We're burnt out.
And texting also,
right? Hey, are we still on for next Tuesday? Mm-hmm. Right. We get those all the time. The problem is in terms of our brain needs more cues. If we have taken out all the cues from our body language in an email, we have no body language in an email, we have no facial expressions in an email, we have no voice tone in an email, we better make our verbal cues pretty powerful.
Right.
And so that's why we're so burnt out on email. That's why people might respond slowly to your emails is there's not enough cues. It's like under signaling.
Right.
So what I like to think about is adding warmth and competence to your emails, to your texts. So
to a text also?
Yes, absolutely. So when we are getting a text or an email from someone or reading a LinkedIn profile, we're also trying to see warmth and competence. It doesn't go away in written communication. So I can look at a LinkedIn profile. Actually, a study that we did in our lab, we had people come into our lab. I felt bad for these participants. They had no idea what was coming for them. And we had them take our charisma diagnostic to see where they were on warmth and competence. By the way, that's up for free. You can take it whenever you want. It's sciencepeople.com/charisma. So take it as many times as you want. So we had them take that. It's like a, 10 question questionnaire to see where they were on warmth and competence. Then we asked them to open up their email sent folder. And we looked at their last 5 emails that they sent. And we counted the number of warm words, the number of competent words. So warm words are words that are like the warm and fuzzies. Happy, best, together, collaborate, open. Emojis are warm. Exclamation points are warm. Words like wow, yay, fab, whoop. Those are all warm words. They make us feel like, ooh, wow, I like this person.
But emoji, doesn't it kind of also, it takes away the people. You don't feel a person's competent.
Right.
They feel like,
it's friendly.
You feel like it's too like cutesy.
It's all friendly. Yeah. So we counted the number of warm words and we counted the number of competent words. Competent words are words that make you want to get it done. Productive, efficient, brainstorm, power through, goal, win, achieve, success, master, those kinds of words. Statistics, numbers, prices, charts, graphs, right? Mm-hmm. Right. So those are all competence. We count them all up. And we could almost exactly predict where someone was in the charisma scale based on the kind of words they use. So if someone was highly charismatic, they had a perfect balance of warmth and competence. If someone was highly warm, they used a ton of emojis and a ton of exclamation points. If someone was super competent, they had either nothing at all or lots of statistics and big words.
Wow.
So in your texts and your emails, you want to balance the number of warmth and competence words.
Now, is that for personal and professional?
I think so, right? Like I want to be seen as charismatic in all my relationships. Now, on emails that don't matter, like emails where it's purely logistics, sure, you don't need to do it, right? Like these are the emails that matter to you, like the emails like to your boss or a client or an important email to your best friend. So it's not that you have to use them in every email. Like you wouldn't be like, have the perfect hand gestures when you're trying to talk to your husband about the weekend plans.
Okay, but how about if you want to text back from a guy that you like or a woman
then I
that you like?
definitely want to use it.
Right. So give us an example of what you should do and what you shouldn't do.
Okay. So what I wouldn't do is, are we still on for tonight? Right, which is like often the text that you get.
Yeah.
It's sterile.
No,
There's
but how about
nothing
like,
there.
hi, I'm just making this up, of course. Like, hi, you know, like whatever. Like, I don't know.
Hi is good.
Yeah, like, hey.
I like hi.
You know, you say like, don't even say things that are like social scripting, like, how was your day?
Agreed.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Oh, agreed. So like, for example, I live in Texas, right? So
Yeah.
I might be like, howdy.
Yeah. Okay.
Just to be a little different, you know?
Cute.
Howdy. And I might be like, so instead of are we on for tonight? Howdy. So excited for tonight. Still looking good? So that's very different because I'm giving an interesting howdy, an interesting opener. I'm saying so excited for tonight. So it's a little dopamine word. Excited is a great dopamine word. It's almost like a charisma word. It's perfectly warm and competent. And then I'm like, still looking good for tonight? Still looking good for tonight is such a good psychological sentence.
That's great.
Because you're basically saying, I'm looking good. Are you looking good?
Yeah. I love it. Okay, if you don't live in Texas, what do you write?
Aloha, ciao.
What if it's
hola?
not about
No, I'm just
plans?
joking.
Give me another one that's not plan
And by the way, you don't
related.
have to like use all the different openers. You can, but like, yeah, you don't have to use howdy or aloha or ciao or whatever.
But they're great.
Yeah, if you can, they're
Give me
fantastic.
another one. If you want someone to respond to you, that's not like if you don't have plans, but you want them to engage.